You hand over your data, your time, and honestly, sometimes your entire digital identity to platforms every single day.
Oh, yeah, constantly.
Right. And it usually just starts with this simple click on a button that says, I agree to the terms of service. And I mean, we all do it.
Yeah, and nobody actually reads the fine print.
Exactly. Nobody reads it. But what actually happens when that invisible, highly complex digital contract suddenly bites back? Well, welcome to today's deep dive.
It is going to be a fascinating one.
It really is. Today, our mission is to explore the often invisible and incredibly frustrating power dynamics between digital platforms and the users who basically rely on them to generate income.
Because that dynamic is built entirely on asymmetry. I mean, the platform holds all the data, the algorithms, and the final say.
Right.
And the user operates almost entirely on trust. So when that trust breaks down, things escalate very, very rapidly.
You really do. And to understand that breakdown, we aren't looking at some boring white paper or broad industry report today.
No, we've got something much more intimate this time.
We do. Our source of material today is a raw 3-page PDF document. It's an actual direct email thread from May of 2026.
Yeah, between a user named MurtyBVNS, who goes by the online handle DrizzleLin.
Right, and the customer support team at a platform called JumpTask. And it starts off as the most mundane interaction you could possibly imagine.
Just a standard tech support ticket.
Exactly. It's request number 158951 with the super generic subject line, I am unable to log in.
Which is, a ticket that probably gets generated thousands of times an hour across the internet.
Right.
But examining this specific micro-interaction, it offers this perfect, really concentrated lens for a much massive macro issue.
Because it escalates so fast.
Oh, unbelievably fast. Over the course of just 3 days, this routine tech support ticket evolves into this profound dispute about systemic corporate fraud, the destruction of personal credibility, and, well, the weaponization of social media.
It gets intense. But before we get into the exact claims that Murty makes, I think it helps to understand the environment we are operating in here.
Yeah, context is key.
So the source mentions JumpTask, and later on it brings up another platform called Honeygain. And for anyone listening who is maybe unfamiliar with this specific corner of the digital economy, these are essentially passive income and microtasking platforms.
Right, so users download an app and they might complete small digital tasks, or honestly, more commonly, they just allow the platform to route traffic through their unused internet bandwidth.
Right, like renting out your extra Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And in exchange, the users accrue these tiny, tiny fractions of digital currency or fiat money over time.
And that underlying mechanic is crucial context here. Because these platforms, they aggregate the resources of millions of individual users to provide services to enterprise clients.
Services like what? Like web scraping or something?
Yeah, web scraping, content delivery, market research, things like that. But because the payout for any single action is just microscopic, a user might leave the application running in the background for weeks.
Or even months.
Exactly, just to accrue a meaningful balance. So the user's relationship with the platform is inherently long-term, but also very passive.
Which makes a sudden disruption incredibly jarring for them.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's look at how the platform actually responds to Murty's initial, I am unable to log in request.
The May 20th email?
Right. So on May 20th, a JumpTask support representative named Adis replies. And the email uses what sounds like very, very standard corporate risk management language.
Very dry, very procedural.
Exactly. So Ada states that during a routine security check, Murty's account was flagged for violating the terms of service.
And then it gets worse.
Yeah. The email then claims that an anti-fraud team manually checked the account and decided it would remain permanently suspended.
Boom. That is the definitive severing of the digital relationship right there.
It is. But the sentence that follows is the real friction point. It's the thing that drives the entire rest of the conflict.
Yeah, the deflection.
Right. The support representative writes, unfortunately, we are unable to share further details regarding this process. And then they literally just provide a generic link to the platform's user agreement.
Just a link.
I mean, I find this response deeply unsatisfying.
It's maddening for the user.
It really is. It's the equivalent of, taking an exam, getting a failing grade, and when you ask the teacher which specific questions you got wrong, they refuse to tell you.
They just hand you the entire course textbook.
Exactly. They just hand you the textbook and tell you the answer is somewhere in there. Giving someone a link to a dense, multi-page legal document is not an explanation. It is a complete deflection.
It really is.
So I wonder, is this just a cost-saving measure? Because it's obviously much cheaper to have an automated system ban users and send a boilerplate rejection than to, hire human customer service reps to actually litigate individual appeals.
Right.
Or is there any legitimate strategic reason a tech company would flat out refuse to provide proof of violation to its own users?
Well, there actually is a very real cybersecurity logic behind it, even if the result feels totally draconian to the user.
Okay, what's the logic?
You are looking at the classic black box of algorithmic security. From the platform's perspective, providing transparent proof is fundamentally dangerous to their own infrastructure.
How so?
Let's think about how adversarial machine learning and fraud networks actually operate. If JumpTask tells a user, hey, you were banned because our system detected you using a specific commercial IP proxy in Frankfurt.
Oh, I see.
Or if they say, your account was flagged because you completed tasks at a superhuman click rate. They aren't just resolving a ticket anymore. They are handing a literal blueprint to actual bad actors.
Wow, right. Because the fraudster now knows exactly where the tripwire is.
Exactly.
And they will just, program their botnet to step slightly to the left next time.
Precisely. These fraud rings, they run massive arrays of automated accounts, and they actively probe these platforms just to figure out the exact parameters of the detection algorithms.
So it's like a game of cat and mouse.
Exactly that. So if a platform explains the how and the why of a ban, they essentially compromise their entire security apparatus. So the industry standard is complete silence.
Silence is safer.
Right. The platform operates on the philosophy that opacity is literally the only way to protect the integrity of the system.
Okay, I understand the cybersecurity mechanism there. I do. But the collateral damage of that philosophy just seems completely unsustainable.
It is definitely a blunt instrument.
Yeah, because if a platform treats every flagged account as a hostile threat that must be kept in the dark, they are also throwing a blanket of darkness over users who are operating in genuine good faith.
Which is exactly what Murty is claiming.
Right. If I didn't intentionally do anything wrong and the system refuses to tell me what irregular behavior triggered the flag, I have absolutely no ability to defend myself. I mean, I can't prove a negative if I don't even know what the accusation is.
And that right there is the core vulnerability of participating in these digital economies. The power imbalance is just total.
It really is.
The platform owns the data, they write the rules, they program the algorithm that serves as the judge, and they enforce the execution. The user is entirely locked out of the arbitration process.
And Murty clearly recognizes that imbalance. But what's interesting is that he refuses to just walk away.
Yeah, he doesn't just give up.
No, the source thread shows that because JumpTask stonewalls him, he starts looking for alternative explanations for his ban.
Right.
Because if he believes he acted in good faith, and the platform refuses to provide evidence of fraud, he concludes the platform itself must be acting in bad faith.
It's a natural conclusion to draw when you're given no info.
Exactly. So let's rewind slightly to Murty's May 19th email, which was his formal dispute of the initial ban.
Yeah.
In it, he calls the suspension one-sided and says it lacks transparent proof.
But then he makes a pivot that completely changes the nature of the conversation.
Yes, he points out a very specific financial pattern.
And this is where the scope of the document expands from, just a single frustrated user to a systemic accusation. Murty claims that accounts on this platform are being blocked specifically just before payments are due.
Oh, wow. So he is effectively accusing the company of weaponizing its own terms of service.
Exactly.
The implication is that JumpTask is using the guise of a mysterious anti-fraud team as a financial mechanism to simply avoid paying its users the money they have legitimately accrued.
It's a heavy accusation.
It is. And he bolsters this claim by pulling in broader industry context. He states this is a, quote, recurring problem, similar to experiences reported with Honeygain.
Right, and by referencing a competitor like Honeygain, Murty is signaling to the support team that he isn't viewing this in isolation.
He's saying, I see the bigger picture.
Exactly. He is saying he's part of a wider community of digital workers. He is aggregating anecdotal evidence from across forums and social networks. He is identifying what he perceives as a macro trend of wage theft disguised as security auditing.
But reading this objective, raw exchange from the outside, it forces a really difficult question for us.
Yeah.
Because without access to JumpTask's internal server logs or Murty's actual user data, how do we, or you as a listener, evaluate that claim?
It's tough.
I mean, is it actually common for digital platforms to intentionally purge users right before a payout to save money? Or are users simply misinterpreting how anti-fraud sweeps actually function?
Well, to understand why this specific accusation happens so frequently across the industry, we really need to look at the underlying architecture and the computing costs associated with these platforms.
Okay, walk us through that.
It almost always comes down to the engineering of the auditing algorithms themselves. Let's look at the how of the timing.
Right. Why block them right before the payout?
Well, in these microtask or bandwidth economies, a single user might generate hundreds or thousands of tiny data points a day, running deep, complex heuristics on every single microtransaction in real time, like checking IP velocity, cross-referencing global proxy databases, analyzing behavioral patterns. All of that requires immense server power.
And obviously, server power costs a lot of money.
A ton of money.
If a platform is paying a user like a fraction of a cent for a gigabyte of shared bandwidth, spending 2 cents in database query cost to constantly verify, that user would immediately bankrupt the company.
That is the exact economic reality. Continuous deep auditing is computationally inefficient.
So how do platform engineers solve this problem?
They run very lightweight, low-cost checks while the user is slowly accruing a balance. The heavy, expensive, rigorous fraud audits, those are delayed and batched.
Oh, I see.
And when is the most logical time to run that intensive audit? The exact moment the user requests a withdrawal or the moment they cross the payout threshold.
Because that is the point where the platform's actual capital is on the line.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, that makes perfect mechanical sense from an engineering standpoint, but it creates an absolutely devastating user experience.
Oh, it's terrible for the user.
An algorithm might have noticed something slightly irregular about a user's connection weeks ago, but it doesn't drop the ban hammer until the user actually knocks on the door and asks for their $20.
And that delay is the root of the entire conflict here. Because think about it from the outside. Whether a sudden ban is a deliberate, malicious, cost-saving tactic designed by executives to steal wages,
Right.
or if it's simply the cold, automated cadence of auditing software executing its routine at the point of withdrawal, the outcome for the user is totally indistinguishable.
It feels the same.
Exactly. It manifests as a sudden, unexplained financial loss precisely at the moment they expected compensation.
Which entirely explains Murty's perspective. I mean, to him, the timing of the ban is the smoking gun of a scam.
Completely.
He's probably thinking, wait, let me accrue the balance for weeks if my account was compromised from the start.
Right. It looks super fishy.
Yeah. He demands transparent proof because, without it, the timing looks undeniably predatory. But of course, because of the cybersecurity black box we discussed earlier, JumpTask refuses to engage with that logic.
They offer zero proof.
None. They state the manual check is final and the decision stands.
Which leaves the user completely cornered. Formal appeals within the platform's ecosystem have failed. The customer support channel is effectively a dead end.
So what do?
Well, when a digital worker hits that wall of corporate obscurity, they have to look for leverage outside the system.
Which brings us to the final and, honestly, perhaps the most fascinating email in the source document.
Yeah, this is where it really shifts gears.
It is dated May 21st, 2026. Murty issues what he calls a final reminder regarding his suspension. But he doesn't just ask for his account back again. He reveals a detail about his relationship with the platform that radically changes the leverage dynamic.
Yeah, he shows his hand. He isn't merely a passive consumer of their app.
Right. He reveals that he is actually a promoter.
And this changes everything. It shifts the interaction from a private technical dispute into the realm of public relations and brand reputation.
In his email, Murty explicitly states, "I have already lost credibility by recommending JumpTask to my audience."
That's a huge statement.
It is. And he threatens that if the company upholds the suspension without providing specific proof, he will share his experience across various social media platforms.
He is going nuclear.
Pretty much. He outlines a clear intent to warn others to proceed with caution, and he specifically states he will highlight that accounts are being suspended exactly when payments are due.
The dynamic here highlights a really critical feature of the modern digital gig economy. Platforms like JumpTask and HoneyGain, for that matter, they rely heavily on affiliate marketing and grassroots promoters to acquire new users.
Rather than paying for normal ads.
Exactly. Rather than spending massive budgets on traditional advertising, they incentivize existing users to recruit their audiences. They need these evangelists to build trust on their behalf.
Because a recommendation from a creator you follow means way more than a banner ad.
Right.
But that structure inherently outsources all of the social risk to the promoter. It is a bit like being an independent contractor selling a company's product to your friends and family.
Yeah, you take on the brand's reputation.
If the company suddenly ships a defective product, or in this case, arbitrarily confiscates the product without any explanation, the customer doesn't blame the faceless factory. They blame the person who sold it to them.
Because it is the franchising of reputational risk. By acting in good faith to build the platform's community, Murty absorbed that risk.
He put his own name on the line.
He did. So when the opaque automated system banned his account, and presumably the accounts of people he recruited, the collateral damage wasn't just a lost digital payout.
No.
It was his personal credibility within his own community.
So he is essentially trying to pull off the ultimate leverage play. I like to call it the Uno reverse card.
The Uno reverse, I like that.
Yeah, because when legal or structural power is entirely monopolized by the platform, the only currency a digital worker has left to spend is reputational damage. It's like recommending a restaurant to your friends, and then the restaurant randomly steals all your friends' coats.
Your friends are going to be mad at you, not just the restaurant.
Exactly. Your own reputation takes the hit.
Yeah.
So Murty is attempting to aggregate his lost credibility and wield it as a weapon against the platform's future growth.
Right.
When he writes, the lack of transparency from both JumpTask and HoneyGain suggests a pattern of misleading users, he is threatening to poison the well of their entire user acquisition strategy.
And he demands immediate provision of evidence, or he promises to make the matter public. It is this fascinating standoff between automated corporate risk management on one side and decentralized social leverage on the other.
And what's wild is that the document itself just ends right there.
Right, total cliffhanger.
Right? We don't get a neat resolution. We don't know if the sport representative, Ada's, ever replied to that final ultimatum.
We have no idea.
We don't know if JumpTask capitulated and reinstated the account, or if Murty took to social media and ignited a massive public relations firestorm. The PDF literally leaves us suspended right in the tension of that conflict.
You know, the lack of an ending is remarkably fitting, honestly. It leaves you sitting squarely in the reality of the modern digital relationship.
What do you mean?
Well, these standoffs, they occur millions of times a day, mostly unseen, in the back channels of customer support portals everywhere.
That is a really great point. It is so easy to look at a source document like this and think it only applies to people mining crypto or running bandwidth-sharing apps.
But it doesn't.
Not at all. The underlying mechanics we've explored today apply to almost every digital space you inhabit.
Absolutely.
Whether you are building an audience on a video-sharing platform, or you're selling crafts on a digital storefront, or even just maintaining an archive of your life on a social network, you are operating under these exact same power dynamics.
Every single day.
You are continually relying on the benevolence of an automated system.
And the broader implications of that force us to really examine how we define fairness in a digital context.
Right.
As our financial livelihoods, our social networks, and our professional reputations become increasingly governed by opaque security algorithms, we really have to grapple with the erosion of traditional due process.
That is such a powerful thought, because if an algorithmic black box is serving as the judge, the jury, and the executioner of your digital identity.
Right.
And the corporation claims that explaining the algorithm's ruling would compromise their proprietary security. It creates an entirely closed loop.
No way in, no way out.
Exactly. Who audits the algorithm? If the mechanisms governing our digital lives are too secretive to be challenged, we're all basically just one silent server update away from being locked out of our own lives.
Left holding a link to a terms of service agreement we can't even enforce.
Wow. Yeah, that is something to mull over next time you click. I agree. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. We hope it gives you a new lens through which to view the invisible systems, the delayed algorithms, and the precarious digital contracts you interact with every day. Keep questioning the mechanics behind the curtain.